Hello, everyone. My name is David Reed. Welcome to Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project, episode 299. I really appreciate you being here today. I'm privileged to have guests that I used to have over at Gate World before I migrated out on my own, occasionally on the show. And there were some that really stuck out in my mind for one reason or another, just the conversations that we had. Brandy Ledford is one of those in particular, and I am thrilled to have her on Dial the Gate. Brandy, thank you for being here.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello from my mom's house.
Hey, there you go. How are you
Gotta do
doing? How
what
are
you gotta
things
do,
going?
right? What'd you say?
I'm
Hi.
sorry. How are you doing? How are things going?
I'm really good this morning. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be on your show.
When you look back on your body of work, um, particularly these Atlantis, the Atlantis episode and the SG-1 episode that you did, do you look back on that time period with pride, and how does it make you feel having worked on some of these projects?
When I look back on them, first of all, thank you so much for the trip down memory lane
Yeah.
because I loved rewatching all those episodes. I don't watch them often. I don't watch them ever. And my old episodes, and I loved watching it. It's funny because I'm always just so proud and I'm always just so honored and humbled and grateful that I was ever on um, incredible TV shows, right? Like, especially Stargate, because it's so beloved, it's so well watched, it's so respected. And so when I look back, I just feel honored about it. Uh, and I try to see if it holds up in today's market, right? Or in today's
Hmm.
time, because the genres are all different now. Although sci-fi is still really, of course, really popular and really huge. But I wonder if it would hold up today, those same scenes, the graphics. So it's interesting to watch. I love it.
Absolutely. Can I ask you about your faith?
Please ask me about my faith.
My understanding is that, like myself, you found it later in your life.
Mm.
How has it helped orient you in the world and in your goals? And how has believing in something greater than yourself helped propel you?
Wow, David, what a good question. I did
Speaking,
not.
we're speaking largely to a secular audience, and you and I can
All right.
go down the rabbit hole about our personal Christian beliefs. But in terms of orienting yourself in the world, I'm curious as to what you would share personally, to people who don't necessarily have those views.
Interesting. It's funny you should say we're talking to a secular crowd just because,
Largely,
largely secular, because I find the sci-fi community so open-minded and so
that's right.
able to suspend their disbelief that there are galaxies full of beings and all the things that we have to believe when we watch a sci-fi show and really take it in. Um, my episodes in particular of Stargate, right? Like, we're
Right.
willing to believe this storyline, and yet they're not willing to believe in a power greater than themselves. And so I just find that a fascinating concept. For me personally, I did find Jesus late in life,
Hmm.
not late in life, but I didn't grow up as a kid going to church
Yeah.
or, having a faith taught to me or role modeled for me. But I did find God in my early 20s. And then I leaned sort of ish on God, right? Like, I went
Hmm.
to church, but I wasn't, and I believe in Jesus, and to this day I do. But I find that a lot of Christians make Christianity look bad in a way.
Oh, I,
They're
I think you can say that about many of us for sure.
for sure. And
Absolutely.
a lot of religions do that to the
Yeah.
religion, right? So I'm very non-religious. I just really sort of love the way Jesus taught about caring and not judging and just loving, um, especially the most downtrodden,
Mm.
right? Like, he just loved and cared. And so that's sort of the Christian that I am. And my faith guides me in my life daily. I am in touch with God first thing in the morning.
Hmm.
And I just really have to get centered and grounded in that
Hmm.
humble, if I can. if I can say that, I really just connect with God. It's the most humbling experience. And then in my sobriety, I've really found a relationship and a connection to a higher power.
You have to fill that hole with something. What is the something going to be? You can't pretend that that hole doesn't exist, especially, once you've removed something like alcohol or drugs from your life, you can clearly see that there is now some kind of a hole. Whereas a lot of people who haven't had that experience are like, what are you talking about? I haven't dug that hole for myself. To give yourself something grounded, to orient yourself in the world, is very powerful. And I think for sci-fi fans in particular, they, exactly like you said, they are receptive because they're willing to experience other things on screen. There's a lot of science fiction that explains the Trinity far more clearly than a lot of people who read the Bible can. Because it's like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. The motion
Speaking
picture.
of Trinity, like The Matrix.
Exactly right, I love how sci-fi opens our minds, but how, our faith can fill holes in our lives that we didn't even know were there.
Well, and that's exactly right. And thank you for saying that. That's so beautiful. I did not realize this conversation was going to go this way. And what an absolute incredible surprise for me to be able to talk about my faith.
You've left an impact on me.
We were doing it. And
briefly
I have to say,
yeah,
I love the idea that if I have a spiritual malady, it's because I'm trying to fill that spiritual void or hole with things outside of God. And then once I fill that up with some spirituality, then I'm not seeking, drugs, alcohol, food, gambling, whatever the thing is that people are trying to fill their time with. And it's a real big blessing for me to do that. In the same way, with my career, I have given that all to God as well, and just had faith that He's leading me in the right direction where I go in my career, whatever it is I do.
Whatever
and
it
in
is.
in my personal life, my private life, my family, my friends, my children, like anything. Mm-hmm. I get to turn those over to God every day.
Can you tell me about finding Stargate? And the audition, I think for Zarin it was first, the Tok'ra on the undercover Tok'ra on SG-1. Finding the team that was making Stargate happen. Where were you? Were you living in Vancouver at the time? And tell us about getting on this moving train.
Yeah, I was living in Vancouver. I moved to Vancouver, and I immediately I had a baby. And then as soon as, he was born, I went back to work and I started working, and just a lot of sci-fi shows shoot in Vancouver I think because it's such a moody, dark, it's like easy to shoot, but they ended up having a lot of sci-fi shows up there. And I just auditioned. I wasn't really in the moving vehicle of Stargate. I was just really fortunate enough to work with Peter. So Peter DeLuise directed me a lot actually in my career, and I love Peter and Anne. And I just I auditioned, and they thought I was right for that part, and that was really fun. And then I got to meet Chris Judge and everybody, on Stargate SG-1. Yeah. Super fun. Became really good friends with Chris Judge's wife, Gia, who I love.
She's amazing.
I know, she is completely. And so really that particular show, because I wasn't such a big pivotal part in it, I was just honored to be there, and I just had really good memories of it. But it was just, working hard. Actors work really hard on auditions. We audition and work. I put a lot of energy and effort into every audition, and I was just on a roll at that time in my career, just like nonstop working, which is a miracle.
I have had the privilege of getting to know Christopher Judge. He is pure light. There's this big imposing man, and his laugh, it just fills up a room, when you can hear him 2 or 3 rooms away. It's like, that's Christopher Judge. I'll be right back. I've got to say hello. There is something about him.
Have you ever seen, he's a photographer. He did a calendar of all of us, women of sci-fi, and he shot. Yeah, you saw that. I'm sure.
It's a great calendar. What was it like working with him behind the lens?
He was really good. Oh my God, I loved working with him. There's a lot of movement. As a photographer, I like when the photographers move, and it was just a lot of movement and a lot of really good concepts and ideas. It was fun. We shot at his house and everybody was there and it was really fun.
It's amazing how pivotal. I mean, you think obviously the photographer's in control, but in terms of how they interact with their subject and how they put them at ease and how they play with them, it can really change the performance. Even though
Yeah.
they're captured in stills, the life is still coming out.
Yeah.
There's a
That's
lot
right.
to that. With his personality, man, oh man, I don't know how I would have kept a straight face.
It was fun.
Tell us about being on Atlantis, working opposite the likes of David Hewlett,
Yeah.
Joe Flanagan. I mean, these folks, quite energy unto themselves. Atlantis, a little bit different show, more technical. This was a very technical episode, a lot of visual effects.
Mhm.
What was it like shooting Inferno?
I loved Inferno. So I want to go back to SG-1 just real quickly to talk
Yeah,
about the difference, right? So like for me to play Zarin, Lord Zarin on SG-1 was really, I didn't really understand, it was just the fun part for me was that incredible custom made dress they made for me. And then getting to, they changed my voice and it was this
that's right.
whole like quick, like I just felt lucky to be there. But I wasn't really in it, right? With Atlantis, I had a couple little Easter eggs in there that I'm not sure your viewers know about, and I'm gonna spoil the I'm gonna tell it to you.
Please.
So Jason Momoa was my
Yes,
co-star on Baywatch,
that's
and
right.
we're really good friends. And I've worked with him a number of times. I mean, I worked with him for the year, on Baywatch, but like once we were on Stargate together, I don't know if you can notice, but we have this little look between us. When I'm walking in that first scene, when I'm walking past Joe and Rachel and David, and then I sort of look at Jason, and we had this idea that we were just going to look at each other like, I know you. Because we were co-stars on one show. Now we're over here on Atlantis together. And so Ronan and Norina have this look that makes no sense in the scene, except Jason and I were like, let's do this. But that is the theme of the whole show for me, like just fun. Now, of course, I'm playing a serious character. And I say it all the time when I'm interviewed about my sci-fi shows. I love sci-fi for women because women get to be strong, smart, tough, beautiful, capable, respected. And I got to be my full, beautiful self and still be taken seriously as a smart, person on the show.
And she's
And
in
I
control of the whole team.
was in control of the whole team.
Yeah,
And
she's
I
the head
love,
honcho over this base.
I mean, where do you see that other than in sci-fi?
Right.
Really, for me, it's always an honor and a privilege to remember that. And we had a lot of fun. I loved working with Joe. Joe Flanagan was so fun. We had such incredible chemistry. I'm not sure if you could tell.
I can. It was written into a lot of it was in the dialogue and it just came out great. They hired
I know.
well.
Well, that was all real.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
David, I have the most respect for David. I think he is a comedic genius. I think he's a really caring, soulful actor.
Yeah.
I loved working with David. I mean, really, really, he's my cup of tea for sure.
How is it day after day ingesting these lines of dialogue, much of it technical, much of
Yeah,
it you have to believe a little bit yourself in order to properly convey it,
that's
and
right.
having it come all back out in the exact correct order? As someone who hasn't acted since college, how is that done? How do you do that?
Exposition is the hardest acting
Gosh,
because it's just so much. And a lot of times, God bless them, but writers don't understand that words have to actually fit in your mouth, right? And so I do a lot. I rehearse it a lot. I'm quite fortunate. I have a photographic memory.
okay.
So it helps, with a lot of that stuff. And um, I used to be quite proud of being able to do a lot of exposition. I ended up with a lot of exposition on a lot of TV shows, right? Like just the person like throwing out the words. And the truth is you just have to really make that stuff even more life or death believable because it's so rote. It can get monotonous. It can get boring, and you need the
Sure.
inflection and to make it interesting. In order to do that, you can fake it or you can really truly believe it. And so I just would go into this like world of complete imagination and just completely believe what I was saying, even if I didn't understand it. And I'll tell you something, I didn't understand a lot of things I said. I had to, find out, look it up. And even as it was explained to me, I still didn't know. I just believed it anyway.
For sure. You have to accept the process is going
Yeah,
to lead to somewhere productive. And
that's right.
the person whose shoes you're standing in, they know what it is that they're talking about, and you have to accept that they will when you convey it. You know?
That's exactly right. That's actually, you nailed it. And not only do I have to convey it because of my co-star, I have to convey it to my audience because
Yeah.
and I didn't understand this quite as I was ever filming any sci-fi show. Like they know what's up. The audience is smarter than I am. They know exactly what I'm saying. They know exactly what universe I'm talking about.
They'll
I mean, they
catch you
know
if you don't believe it.
they'll catch you. Yeah. So I had a lot of respect for that. And that's why I wanted to, I mean, I wanted to look good. I wanted to come off believable. I'm an actress, I really wanted this to sell, but also out of respect for the fans. And even when to this day, years, decades later, when I'm on a podcast or being interviewed, I do a little research because these fans are still so, um, you know, um, interested in that, and they're still holding on to these episodes and loving that. And I want to show them respect that I respect that.
I think that's one of the nice things about modern television is that everything is so accessible. So much of past television, if it's good, if it is of
Mm,
quality, can be pulled out of the archives, and you can still find it online. Stargate is on Pluto, streaming 24/7, all three shows, and it's finding its way into new audiences that have never seen it before, into
that's
younger
right.
audiences who weren't even born,
Right.
and it's evergreen, as Brad Wright used to say. It's
Brad, how is he? Do you ever talk to him?
I about a year ago we spoke on a like a multi-channel show. He's doing great. So he's just an extraordinary fountain of ideas. Him,
Yeah.
Rob Cooper, is whatever they do, you can watch knowing that it's going to be sincere,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in most cases really well done.
They're
And
very creative.
yeah,
They don't forget that people need to understand. They have a really, really good way of explaining and writing these shows for people to enjoy and really absorb.
absolutely. When you are putting out all of this, and you said you're very making sure that the exposition sounds and feels real, and you take pride in your work of being able to push through all this material. Do you find that the more you did it, the more they would give you?
Yeah,
Was
actually,
it reciprocal?
did I say that before in an interview a long time ago? It sounds like I've said that before, but that is what ends up
Oh
happening. Yeah.
no, really?
Yeah.
She
It
can shovel
happens.
it in. Let's shovel. Let's give her more to shovel.
Then
It's
they give
like
you
coal
more. I'm
into a
like,
furnace.
you got to stop being so good. but but I actually, I got a kick out of it. I enjoy it. That is hard. I got to say, yeah. But they would give you more because you're the guy, you're the girl that can do it.
Absolutely, that's right. You gotta lean into your instincts and accept the fact that you can go with it. I have had a couple of actors on who would admit to, and Joe being one of them, after he talked with Richard Dean Anderson, would
Yeah,
admit to flubbing some lines so that they would give dialogue to other people so that they wouldn't have to carry as much because it wasn't their strength. Like Richard
actors are
Dean Anderson
tomorrow.
had a two finger rule, and if it was long, and he was also an executive producer, so he got scripts early and could do this.
Well,
If it
yeah,
was longer than his two fingers, they would adjust it, because that wasn't necessarily his strength.
yeah.
So they would just feed into it. Can you share any of your experience on Andromeda?
What do you want to know? I loved Andromeda. I mean,
Being an artificial life form?
all love to Stargate, but like
Yeah,
Andromeda Doyle was my favorite character I ever played. And I talk about her a lot when I'm asked about my career because um, I got to be sort of an action right? Like I got to do a lot of action and I love it. Like my dream would be to be like Trinity on Matrix, right? Like
Oh,
do
for
an act.
sure.
And I got to do a lot of that with Doyle. Also, Doyle was incredibly beautiful, smart, tough, respected. I mean, she was an android, but of course, I loved that because she was programmed with all this incredibleness and everybody, and again, like the leader, like the strongest being in the universe, and so sort of in command. And I just loved that process. And that was a long, I was on that show for 8 months. So that was, I got to really, really experience a lot of exposition, but a lot of great camaraderie with my cast. Loved it. I loved everything about
Can you
Andromeda.
tell me about finding her humanity in the slower beats, in the slower moments? Where do you do that when the main driver is more of an action oriented show? You're playing an artificial intelligence for want. I mean, more in general.
Yeah.
How do you work the humanity into that?
Incredible question. Same as the exposition. You just really, truly believe, right? I didn't think, well, how would an android react to this life? And I really, truly humanized her, made her human. I actually cared more. I mean, I loved Doyle. I loved Harper and all, everybody's so like I just formed relationships with the cat, with my co-stars, right? With our relationships within the show, within the galaxy, within the actual ship, with all of it. Like I just created backstories for our
Mm-hmm.
relationships as if she were human, right? As if it was life or death and real. um, I never once thought of her as anything other than human.
Okay. Okay. Because it's always a fine line of what do you believe and what does the character believe? What are you trying to imbue into the character? Because you obviously believe that you're creating a performance, but in the front of the screen, the character doesn't know that. The character just
Yeah,
exists as it is.
that's
So
right.
yeah,
That's
lock
when you fully go into it's real.
right.
It's not pretend, it's not make believe. I just was in her,
For
you
this
know.
moment, it's happening.
Yeah. I mean, I also had so much fun with her. Like I just had so much fun. Do you remember this scene when Harper, he programmed her to have human responses. So when Kevin Sorbo is like unhooking my wires from the back, like I had like real like human responses, as one might to a gorgeous man touching her. And so come on, you
Oh,
have
come
fun with
now.
that.
Of
That's
course. Of
that's
course.
fun. That's fun for an android. It's fun for anybody, right? So I did that. And then like the just it was, what can I say? I loved her. I loved everything about her.
Yeah. Lockwatcher, he kind of already asked the question that I just posed to you. Is there anyone that you've from that particular crew that you've or cast that you've kept in touch with that you try to stay connected to?
To which show?
To Andromeda.
Oh, and Andromeda. We some of us follow each other on
Okay.
Instagram, and it's I'm not really aligned with Kevin Sorbo's way these
Okay.
days. Really, I mean, God bless him, but
Okay.
I don't keep in touch with him. Jason Momoa, I mean, he wasn't on
Jason.
Andromeda. He's the one I've seen, the most. But
He's just
Lexa,
skyrocketed. But Lexa, okay.
that's awesome. Good for him. I love Lexa. She's the reason I was on Andromeda.
I didn't know that.
Oh, so
I
I
didn't.
was is it a pitch hitter or a pinch hitter?
I think
I
it's
don't
a
know.
pinch hitter in this case. It's the baseball
Yeah,
term.
so
Yeah.
yeah. She was pregnant and couldn't film season 5, so they brought me in to not replace her, but take
Stand in.
her to stand in for Rami and do what
Mm.
Rami did, but then I was extra. And so I ended up staying on the show for the year. And then she came on after she'd had her beautiful baby and came on a little bit later. So we did get to work a little bit together.
I did not
I
know
loved
that.
And I loved her husband, Michael Shanks, on Stargate.
Absolutely. Michael's coming on at the top of the hour.
Oh, say hi to him for
I
me.
definitely will.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Tracy wants to know, is there a book, movie, or TV series that has deeply impacted or influenced you?
Matrix.
The Matrix, yeah. The Matrix is a whole other level
Well, and the Bible.
Well, of course, yes, but in terms of like sci-fi, the subtext that you can mine that thing forever.
And I can watch The Matrix 100 times. I may have watched it dozens of times and still get something new out of it and still be influenced by it. And it holds up. Speaking about shows that still hold up, right? Like I can watch The Matrix and still enjoy it. I would say it influenced me the most, to Tracy's question, in various ways throughout my life, ever since in various and different ways as I get older, as I understand about choice, as I understand about the one, as I understand about sci-fi in general.
I think the big takeaway for me is you have a purpose. The chances of you being here are infinitesimal. You are here for this brief little blip and then you are gone. What ripples are you going to leave? And are they going to be good ripples? Or are they going to be ripples that are going to have darker consequences? You set your course. And I think the best science fiction tells us and reminds us that we are not just randomly spinning through space, although sometimes it feels that way. But we are here for a particular time, for such a time as this. Right. And go out and do what you were meant to do.
Amen. I love that, David. I couldn't even have said that better to myself. Wow, that was beautiful.
I really appreciate you coming on. And
I really appreciate you asking me these incredible questions. I loved every second of this. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
I was privileged to interview, about 150 folks over on Gate World, and there have been some that have just stuck with me in my mind through the years. And we only got to speak on the phone briefly, but that time spent with you then and now has been very important to me. Thank you for sharing yourself and your faith and your feelings, and it means so much to have you back.
Wow. Thank you. I'm so honored. I'm so humbled. Thank you.
Thank you for coming back. I'm going to wrap up the show on this end. If you've got to go, I understand, but I got to
go to yoga.
Hey, there you go. Thank you. Thank you, Brandy, for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
That was Brandy Ledford, everyone, Norina, and Lord Zarin on Stargate. I've been privileged to get to know so many folks over the years, and there are just some that really do stick with you for one reason or another, and she's just a gem. Michael Shanks is joining us in 30 minutes at the top of the hour for Dial the Gate episode 300. I hope you're going to be able to stick around for that. If you enjoy what you've seen with episode, click the like button. It does make a difference with the show and will continue to help us grow our audience. Please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend. And if you want to get notified about future episodes, click subscribe. And giving the bell icon a click will notify you the moment a new video drops, and you'll get my notifications of any last-minute guest changes. And clips from this live stream will be released over the course of the next few weeks on both the Dial the Gate and GateWorld.net YouTube channels. Big announcement today, Stargate transcripts, Dial the Gate transcripts are now available over at dialthegate.com. I just posted a video on the channel about this just a little bit ago, so go and check it out. And if you want to get involved, let me know. That's what I've got for you here. Questions for me. William Aarons, David, you should have Blue back after he views the Nightwalkers episode. Blue Mankuma. We had him on last week. He was Sheriff Knox in Nightwalkers. I sent him a Dropbox link, and apparently he couldn't open it. I wish he would have let me know, because I would have troubleshooted it for him. Yeah, he was cool. Blue was really cool. And it's one of those where we didn't talk a lot about Stargate, but we talked a lot about him. And that's just as important as far as I'm concerned with this oral history project, because he had a tremendous relationship with Don Davis. And They were both in the same vocal range, so they were up for a lot of parts that had to do with voice. And if you want to hear a little bit about Don, go over and check out the Blue Mankuma interview. That's what I've got for you here. Michael Shanks, again, is coming up at the top of the hour. One question per person in the YouTube chat for that. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate. I appreciate you tuning in, and I will see you on the other side.